welcome back to Young Engineers of Today. I hope you had a good couple of days, and hope you're ready to continue with SketchUp. Now, I know not everybody's gotten it up and running now, and that's okay. We'll do the best we can to get it at least up and running throughout these lessons, and then you can refer back to the videos after the fact in order to be able to do the stuff that we've been working on. But we'll try and make as much progress as possible in the next few days, and we'll move on to something else afterwards. All right, sounds good, Jacob. If you want, you can wait until after class too. Either way. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get open the document that we were working on. Maybe. Assuming that SketchUp loads. My computer's been acting a little funky. Then again, who's really surprised by that, considering that that's been something I've been talking about the last few weeks we've been having a class. There we go. So let's see here. All right, so we got it open. Or I got it open, rather. This is what we spent time on Monday, getting this set up. And this was not too complicated. Basically, what it involved was just making a 50 by 150 foot rectangle and then pulling it up 2 feet, then creating a 2-foot offset. So this became, 46 by 146, and then pulling that up 2 feet. And then at the very end there, went and created a single stair. We can spend some time creating the second stair here. Whoops. Wrong window. There we go. Okay, so rather than drawing the other stair separately, we can try and copy and paste it. But what we did originally was we drew a line out from the midpoint of this big rectangle here, drew it out, and then drew lines in 5 feet in either direction, and then connected them back, and then pulled it up a foot. So we had a 1 foot by 1 foot by 10 foot stair, just centered on this bottom rectangle. Now what we can do is we can select all of the different parts of this. So I'm selecting all of the lines that make it up, as well as all of the faces. So I have just the stair selected. And then I can click on the Move tool and move it. Now, if I hold down Alt while I'm moving it, maybe it's Control? Yeah, it's Control. If I hold down Control while I'm moving it, I do in fact create a copy of it. Now, this is the part where it gets a little bit tricky, is moving it along. Let's undo, undo, and undo. Undo one more time. Sometimes it doesn't entirely cooperate, and so you have to spend some time fiddling with it. But yeah, moving it, if we hold down Control, we can move it manually. line it up, and then move it upwards. And there we go. We've got our second stair. Just required a little bit of patience and careful movement. That will actually give us, like I said, a second stair. And then if we wanted to, we could actually draw lines along the edges here connecting these. One foot. And in doing so, we give the suggestion of embedded stairs onto it, more so than just having these individual blocks. So by doing that, hey, look at that. Now we've got, like, we definitely have stairs put into the side of this temple. That wasn't too bad, right? Hopefully, maybe, potentially. That's floating a little bit above, but we'll just pretend that that's not. It looks good enough at a distance. So this is more or less the base of our design. Let me go ahead and there we go. So we've got the sort of the tiered base, and we've got the stairs leading up so that people can, you know, walk up these stairs presumably. The stair rectangle, basically the way I centered it was by just, when I was moving it, I grabbed it from the middle, and let me undo that. And then when I moved it up against this back rectangle, I was able to line up the midpoints that way. So that that was at least one way you could do it. Otherwise you can just eyeball it, just with careful movement, that kind of thing. But yeah, I'll give everybody a couple of minutes to work on that. And then we'll move on to the next thing. All right, so that was me just testing something out. So basically what we're going to do is we're actually going to create some guidelines for ourselves, which is going to help us in creating the next object. So if you go up here to the tape measure tool, I'm going to show you one of the other features of the tape measure tool. You can start down here at the end point, right? So if you put the edge of the tape measure against it, you get the little green circle letting you know that you're at the corner. And you can just click and move it upwards. And if you, instead of clicking again, if you just take your hand off the mouse, type 6, and then hit enter, there we go. See how it creates this little plus symbol here? And unfortunately, the more I zoom into it, the less it helps because it stays the same size. Let me zoom out a little bit. Well, you might see it there. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and do that over here as well. Hit 6 and enter. So now I got these two little points here that exist just off of the corner. These are exactly 6 inches away. Again, I just hit 6 and then enter, and it creates a guide point at 6 inches away. Now what I can do is I can, again using the measuring tape, I can start at these guide points and make sure you're drawing along the axis. See, I'm drawing along the green axis here, so I'm parallel to the green axis. I'll just draw out, let's say about 6 feet. It doesn't have to be exact, which is why I'm not entering the exact numbers in. And then likewise over here along the red axis, about 6 feet. So now I've created these guidelines, and they're offset from the edge by 6 inches. So this is 6 inches away from this edge, and this is 6 inches away from this edge. If we were to zoom way out, it becomes even more difficult to basically see the distance. But that's fine. We're actually going to use these guidelines in order to set up our next part. The way we're going to do that is we're actually going to create another rectangle, and we're going to make it 3 feet by 3 feet. So 3 and then a single quote and then a comma and another 3 and another single quote. Hit enter. And that actually creates the little perfect square there. And if we use the move tool, we can actually move this rectangle so it lines up with these guidelines that we've created. So there, now the square is resting just right on those guidelines, which is excellent, exactly what we want. Then once we've done that, we're actually going to pull up this square 1 foot. Hit enter, bam, there it is, resting nicely on top of the secondary foundation in the corner, 6 inches away from the corner. So far, so good, right? Like that all makes sense? Give everybody just like a minute to do that. For sure. So it is 3 foot by 3 foot by 1 foot. So hold on. The orange lines are 3 feet, and the pink line is 1 foot. Uh, 6 inches from either edge, or from both edges, I guess, depending upon whichever one makes more sense to you to think of it as. All right, so now that that's done, what we're going to do is we're actually going to create a couple more guidelines from corner to corner. So they run diagonally across like that. And there's a point where they meet in the middle. As you can see, it's automatically highlighted. It's got a white box with a red X, and then the tooltip is intersection, which is great. That's the center of this square because that's where these two diagonal lines intersect, which makes it the center of the square. So what we can do in this case is we can go to Polygon and then just immediately type 12 before we do anything else. Like once we have the tool selected and see how it's just sort of floating there out in space, I'll hit 12 and then I'll mouse over the intersection and click. And as I move it outwards, I can just type 1 and then a single quote to make it 1 foot and hit enter. And it didn't give me 12 sides, it gave me 6. So let me redo that. So 12, oops, go back to this here, 12, enter. There we go. You have to hit enter after you hit 12. So we're making this a 12-sided polygon. And then we're making it 1 foot in radius, starting from the center. And then if you're always so inclined, you can just select these little guidelines and hit delete once you're done with them. That way you don't have to, see them floating around all over the place. So as soon as you click this tool up here, so if I click the shape, or excuse me, if I click the polygon shape, and then I just type 12 on my keyboard and hit enter, it will make it, it should make it 12-sided. Before you click or anything, just as soon as you select the tool. And again, I'll give everybody a minute with that. All right, so now we're going to do something a little wacky. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my circle tool here, and I'm going to draw circles on each of these corners. So I'm just going to click once, make it 1 inch. Click once, make it 1 inch. Click once, make it 1 inch. Once, 1 inch. Once, 1 inch. And so on, all the way around, so they're all 1 inch. Oops, made that one 13 inches. It actually has made an assumption that I want to make these 1 inch because I've made so many of them that way. But there, now you should have this 12-sided polygon with 12 circles, 12 1-inch circles embedded in it. each at the corners. Now you might be going like, why are we putting 1-inch circles here? What's the point of this? This seems weird. Well, I mean, not necessarily wrong, but like there's a place that we're going with this, and it'll actually be kind of cool once you see it. So now that yeah, it is. Now that I've done that, I'm actually going to erase the outside part of each of these circles. So as you can see now, there's just little half circles on the inside, and then the original polygon, and then I'm going to erase the parts of the polygon that are inside of the circles, I guess. So now what we have is we have a 12-sided polygon with 12 bytes taken out of it, 12 chunks taken out of it at each of the corners. Once you've done that, you pull it up 12 feet. And hey, look at that. You've got a pillar. Kind of clever, right? So I'll give everybody a couple of minutes to work on that as well. And again, if you have any questions about anything. Yeah, Jacob, I saw it. Unfortunately, I didn't want to spend time typing it up, the response, but um, so it's already installed on your machine then, .NET 4.5, from what it seems like. So yeah, try the right, because it's not strictly speaking a program. It is a set of libraries and dependencies that many programs use. So in that sense, you won't necessarily find it in like the programs list. There are ways we can check and see if it's on the computer, but those take a fair amount of time. I might draft up an email later tonight and get that sent out to you with all the stuff. The way you can check and see if it's there. Because it's a bit of an involved process. From what distance from the border and how many faces? Okay, so you mean the borders of the square? Uh, Again, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to draw those diagonal guidelines um, in order to ensure that you are drawing on the center, because it's going to be the center. You're starting from the center of the square. And then it's going to be a 12-sided polygon with a 1-foot radius. Okay. So hopefully at least most of you, if raise your hand if you've already gotten the pillar completed. What's up, Noah? So, okay. When you select the Polygon tool, you see how I just click on it once, so now I got it selected. And so now my cursor becomes the pencil with the circle, but I haven't clicked anything yet on the sketch. I just type 12 and hit enter, and that will automatically create as many sides as you enter in there. So as you can see, when I stop moving it after I type it in, it changes to 12 sides. The little tooltip pops up that says 12 sides. If I type 16, then 16 sides, or if I type 3, then 3 sides, so on and so forth. So 12 and then enter to make it 12 sides. And then you're going to center it on those guidelines that we created on top of the square. You remember making those? Or did you make those, I should say? Okay, yeah, so you're going to start from the intersection of those two lines, and then you're going to click once, and then you're going to type 1 and then a single quote to make it a radius of 1 foot. And that is going to be how you're going to create your 12-sided polygon on your pedestal. I'll give everybody a few more minutes anyway because we only got a couple of hands out of 11 students. So you guys have time. How big do I make the circle on the corners to make the little curvy indentations, and how tall do I make the pillar? Okay, so the circles are going to be 1 inch each, 1 inch radius, and then the pillar is going to be 12 feet tall. All right, just wait for a few more hands and then we'll continue. W. What? Okay, so presumably mostly everybody should have at least the pillar created by now. So what we're going to do is we're going to create the capstone to it. So we'll go to rectangle, and I'll make another 3 foot by 3 foot square. Nice. Capstone. Puns. Off the chain. So now I got this little square that's just sort of sitting here in the middle of my foundation. I can actually move it off, so I'm going to move it along the green axis so it's sort of floating in the air in the middle of nowhere. So far, so good. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to create a guideline. It's going to go up the blue axis, so we want to make sure it's going straight up, and we're going to make sure that it is 12 feet tall. Bam. Because we're actually going to use this as our guide for placing this square on top of our pillar. So I'm going to double click on the pillar, or excuse me, the square in order to select it, and I'm going to use the move tool and move it from the corner in bits and pieces. So I'm going to move it along the red axis, and I'm going to let go, and then I'm going to move it along the blue axis. Actually, I can just make it so much easier. I can just move my cursor to the guide point, and it will automatically deposit the square on top. Whoa, what? Okay. And then we can All right. I'm actually going to extend this guide a wee bit further. So it's going to be 12 feet and 0.01 inches. So hopefully that should give us enough leeway so that we can easily place this on top. Drag the corner, place it on the guide point. It is floating a little bit above, but it's still embedded in it. Okay, so we can still, once that's done though, you can just, ooh, why? We can just pull this whole thing up. So we'll pull it up 1 foot. Bam. So now we've got a capstone sitting on top. Does anyone remember what kind of column this could be potentially representing? Okay, I'll go ahead and show it again. So I created a guideline, right? Using the measuring tape tool. Let me actually create that again. So I've got the square out here. Using the measuring tape tool, I can start from this corner and make sure it's moving along the blue axis so that arrow is blue. And I'm going to type 12 and then a single quote and then 0.01 and then a double quote. And what that does is that just makes it a little tiny bit past the top. Not so much that we're not going to be able to tell just by looking at it, but enough so that they're not embedded in one another. Then I'm going to, using the selection tool, I'm going to double click on our square. So the face of the square is as well as all of the lines that make it up are selected. And then I'm going to use the move tool, select the same corner. So this is going to be the front right corner. And I'm just actually going to mouse over that guide point. And it's going to automatically place it there. And once that's done, you'll see it, boom, floating over the top. And then we can use the press pull tool to pull it up and enter in manually 1 foot. And there you go. We have our capstone. For sure. Yes. You're so right, Liam. All right, so go ahead and raise your hand once you've placed that, that top. A few hands. Did you create the guide point, Brandon? Okay, and did you pull it off of the foundation first before doing that? See, what I did is I moved mine just sort of floating out into the air before I tried to move it up on top of the pillar. Right. No, I know. That's what I'm saying. I moved it off of the foundation, just laterally off of the foundation. I didn't move it up. I just moved it out so it was floating out on the air on the same level, but it was floating out on the air before I tried moving it up on top of the guide points. And you also, you got to drag it from the corner when you're trying to move it up onto the guide point. So I just manually typed that in. So I typed 12 and then a single quote, and without typing anything else, I typed 0.01 and then a double quote and hit enter. Are you able to get it up there, like on top of the pillar with that? Excellent. Awesome. Okay. So this should be our completed pillar. Like we're keeping it pretty simple. We're not going to go crazy with it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just basically get like a side-on view of it. And then I'm going to just drag a box around it. So now as you can see, most of the pillar is highlighted in blue. Some of it isn't, like this face down here and this face down here and this face down here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift and hold down shift and double click on those. Oops. In order to get those particular areas selected. So now we've got basically everything here, the entire pillar and just the pillar selected in blue, which is exactly what we want. I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to hit make components and we're going to call it, we'll call it column. I don't know why I didn't call it pillar, but we'll call it column. And we'll hit create. So now, if I just click on a column, it becomes surrounded in one of those blue boxes, which is fantastic, exactly what we want. All right, so now that we've done that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on it, select my move tool, and I'm going to hold down control and move it sideways. Oops. And so see now, as I'm dragging it, I want to make sure I'm on the green axis. And I'm just going to type 7 and then a single quote, and that will move it 7 feet away. And do the same one with this one. Same thing with this one. Oops. Ah. Hold down control, click once, make sure I'm moving it down the green axis, 7, single quote, bam. Hold down control, click once, Make sure I'm moving on the green axis, 7, single quote, bam, so on and so forth. And we're going to create, I believe, 20 columns, each 7 feet away from each other. Let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, almost halfway there. Five, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 5 more. Oops. I guess one more. And there. We got 1/2 done. 1/2 of all of the columns. Woo! But that is actually going to do it for today. We are unfortunately out of time, so I'm going to go ahead and do the poll questions, and then we'll do question and answer time, and then we'll go ahead, break for class, break for the weekend, in fact. We'll meet up again on Monday, and we'll get this all finished off. 7 feet. Distance between the pillars. Each pillar is 7 feet. Okay, so let me go ahead and do the poll questions, and then we'll,